For many years, Europe has grown accustomed to operating its energy security under the political and military umbrella of the United States. At the same time, the countries of the European Union gradually reduced and, in some cases, severed their energy ties with Russia, treating this not merely as an economic choice, but as a strategic and values-based decision. Reducing dependence on Russian gas was framed as a necessary step to protect sovereignty, strengthen energy independence, and minimize geopolitical risk. Yet when the harshest winter in years returned at the start of this year, market realities pushed Europe into an uncomfortable position that political declarations could not easily conceal. The very gas flows that they had collectively turned their backs on, urged to cut, and included in sanctions packages, ultimately remained a source of supply that the continent's energy system had to rely upon. And paradoxically, the name behind that supply was once again Russia. According to the latest data compiled from Reuters and the network of European gas transmission system operators, the volume of gas supplied daily to Europe by Russia's Gazprom via the TurkStream pipeline, often referred to as TurkStream, increased by 10.3% in January 2026 compared with the same period a year earlier. In the current context, TurkStream has become almost the only remaining functioning route delivering Russian gas directly into the European market. Reuters estimates that in January 2026 alone, total Russian gas delivered to Europe via TurkStream reached about 1.73 billion cubic meters, significantly higher than 1.57 billion cubic meters in January 2025. Data from European transmission operators show that exports via TurkStream averaged 55.8 million cubic meters per day that month, clearly above the 50.6 million cubic meters per day in January 2025, and nearly equal to December 2025 levels, when flows were around 56 million cubic meters per day. This uptick occurred at a time when official data from Russia has become increasingly scarce. Since early 2023, Gazprom has stopped publishing monthly export statistics, forcing most assessments to rely on figures from European operators and independent analysts. While this has made the overall picture less transparent, European data still point to one clear reality: Russian gas has not disappeared. Looking at the whole of 2025, the picture is far bleaker for Russian exports. Gas deliveries to Europe fell by as much as 44%, reaching their lowest level since the mid-1970s. The decisive turning point was the closure of the Ukrainian transit route after no renewal agreement was made. In total, Russia exported only about 18 billion cubic meters of gas to Europe in 2025, a dramatic contrast with the past. In 2018-2019, Russian pipeline gas exports to Europe exceeded 175 to 180 billion cubic meters per year, nearly 10 times the volume of 2025. This collapse reflects the combined effects of war, sanctions, and Europe's diversification efforts. Still, the January 2026 increase, modest in absolute terms, is significant. It shows that when temperatures drop sharply, Europe's ability to fully replace Russian gas remains limited. Meanwhile, inside Russia, domestic gas demand has surged to record levels during this winter's cold spell. Gazprom reported that domestic consumption hit an all-time high in January 2026. Preliminary figures show that Russian consumers used 51.275 billion cubic meters of gas that month. Notably, during the 14 days from January 15th to 28th, gas deliveries reached their highest level ever for that period, surpassing the previous record of 50.971 billion cubic meters in January 2024. Gazprom experts emphasize that the transport system remained stable despite the surge in demand, largely thanks to underground gas storage facilities. For the 2025-2026 winter, operational reserves reached 73.17 billion cubic meters, the highest in Russia's gas industry history. This has allowed Russia to meet domestic needs while still maintaining a degree of exports. Gazprom also notes that air temperature, especially in winter, directly shapes both consumption and production levels. The unusually warm winter of 2024-2025 reduced heating demand, which in turn lowered the need to refill storage during summer, disrupting the traditional cycle. On infrastructure, Russia's unified gas supply system, owned and operated by Gazprom, is a vast pipeline network stretching from European Russia deep into Siberia and towards the Altai and the Far East. More remote eastern regions still rely mainly on independent transport systems, but long-term plans aim to integrate them into a single national network. While Russia is running its system at peak capacity, Europe continues to face a difficult dilemma, balancing political objectives with real energy needs. The rebound in TurkStream flows in January 2026 shows that despite efforts to diversify supplies and expand LNG imports, Europe still cannot fully detach from Russian pipeline gas, especially during extreme weather. The irony is sharpened by the fact that shortly before this, the EU announced a firm roadmap to ban Russian gas imports. In early February, Brussels declared that all short-term contracts related to Russian gas would be banned in the coming months. Short-term LNG contracts would end from April 25th and short-term pipeline contracts from June 17th. The EU went further by setting end dates for long-term deals as well. Long-term LNG contracts from Russia would be banned from May 1, 2027, and long-term pipeline contracts from May 30, 2027. However, member states could request extensions until October 31, 2027, if their gas storage levels had not reached required safety thresholds. Brussels insists that cutting reliance on Russian energy is central to the bloc's long-term security strategy. Yet market reality tells a different story. When winter arrives, political plans must yield to the need for heating, industrial production, and electricity generation. On one side are precise deadlines written into policy documents. On the other is the unforgiving cold that waits for no one. In short, Europe may proclaim a political boycott of Russia, but when temperatures plunge, it still turns back to Russian gas. This contradiction highlights the core challenge of the energy transition: ideals versus reality, political security versus energy security, long-term goals versus immediate needs. And at least this winter, reality has shown that Europe is not yet free from its dependence on Russian gas, no matter how detailed the bans on paper may be.